I was only 37 years old when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I lost my baby and my breasts within a 2-week time frame. While all my friends were carefree, focusing on making play dates for their children, I was worrying about how I would talk to mine about cancer. Although I had less than a 5% chance of ever getting breast cancer again, I had a recurrence 7 years later, which required radiation and chemotherapy. And a few years after that, when I thought all illness was in the rear view, I struggled with 2 bouts of skin cancer. I became a personal trainer and a clean eater to keep cancer at bay, but I continued to look for ways to cope with such life-altering events. Although we each experience our own individual struggles, we collectively search for ways to cope with adversity, as well as to thrive in life. We buy gadgets, apps, biohack, try the latest fad. But what if the power to overcome life's greatest challenges, to heal, to grow, to transform, already existed inside of us? I've discovered that even in our weakest moments, we possess an untapped source of strength. When I finally returned to the gym after multiple surgeries, I struggled to do a single push-up. Lying there, I felt the weight of how cancer had knocked me down, impacting my identity, my sense of beauty, and my strength. So I changed the visual. I visualized this weight that I was feeling as the cancer itself. I gathered all of my energy and pushed all of that sickness away. As my arms locked at the top, I didn't just feel a muscle contract, I felt a mindset shift. I said to myself, I rise. I had found a way to physically embody my own transformation. This was the origin of Visual Emotional Kinetics, the strategic alignment of thought, visualization, and movement. This practice didn't just help me reclaim control, it transformed me into a competitive bodybuilder. My journey was personal, but the theory behind it is grounded in hard science. The brain was once thought to be static, meaning that once it was formed, it couldn't change. However, a 2023 scientific review in Brain Sciences tells us that every thought we think, every habit we practice, and every skill we learn literally reshapes the brain by strengthening some connections and weakening others. This concept, known as neuroplasticity, refers to the brain's ability to rewire itself through repeated experiences. Imagine your brain as a forest of paths. The more you walk a path, practicing skills, learning new things, repeating thoughts, the wider and easier it becomes to follow. However, paths that you don't use slowly become overgrown and harder to find. Connections that are used often become reinforced and made stronger, while those that don't fade away. Once we understand that the brain can change in positive ways to heal, to learn, to thrive, we become empowered to create tremendous change in the way we live our lives. While positive thoughts, visualization, and movement are each powerful on their own, their true strength lies in their synergy. Let's discuss each one and then see how, when they're wired together through neuroplasticity, they create an empowering technique. We often think positive thinking is just a mindset, but a 2025 study led by Suhala Madar says that it's actually a physical upgrade. When you focus on the positive, you're essentially optimizing your brain's circuitry. You are hardwiring resilience into your system so that it becomes your natural response. This triggers the release of feel-good chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, which act as a biological buffer, helping you to reduce stress and recover faster. This also reflects the mind-body connection, or the idea that our thoughts shape our body and our body shapes our mind. Neuroscience tells us that the thoughts that we repeat shape how our brain responds to stress. So when you consistently think hopeful, positive, compassionate thoughts, the body responds by producing mood-boosting chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, causing you to feel peaceful and calm. However, when your inner dialogue is consistently harsh or fearful, stress hormones like cortisol rise, causing you to feel anxiety, tension, headaches, and stomach aches. In a very real sense, your body is the ultimate Siri and Alexa, listening to you at all times. What are the thoughts that you repeat over and over again? What is the story that you tell yourself? There's an old Native American parable in which a grandfather tells his grandchild a story. He says, I have two wolves fighting inside my heart. One wolf is vengeful, angry, nasty. The other wolf is compassionate, hopeful, loving. The grandchild says, which wolf will win the fight? To which the grandfather responds, whichever one I feed. There's something extraordinary about the human mind that neuroscience has only recently begun to fully appreciate. When you imagine an action, vividly imagine it, your brain begins to act as if it's real. Neuroscientist Marc Generard found that when you imagine a motion like swinging a tennis racket, it activates many of the same brain networks as if you were doing it in real life. Your heart rate can change, your breathing shifts, even your muscles can respond. That's why musicians who mentally rehearse, who feel the keys, hear the notes, sense the movement, often perform better when they finally sit down at the piano. And here's something that's really incredible. Studies show that people who only imagined lifting weights without performing a single physical exercise whatsoever still became measurably stronger. And it transcends music and sports. Studies with college students show that those who practice structured visualization were significantly more likely to have academic and personal success. Not because they were wishing, but because their brains were quietly rehearsing becoming the kind of person who could succeed. Which means this: every time you visualize yourself getting through something difficult, or acting with confidence or courage, or accomplishing a goal, you're not just daydreaming, you're training your nervous system to become the kind of person you want to become. Imagine the sheer magnitude of influence we have to reshape our lives. Positive thoughts and visualization are scientifically potent because they cast the initial vote. They activate neural pathways in your brain, priming you for the reality you want to create. But movement casts the deciding vote. When you think confidently, but act physically small, the vote is split. However, when you reach, stand tall, press, or expand, you provide the physical evidence that your nervous system is waiting for. You validate the internal image with external action, making the vote for identity and confidence unanimous. With visual emotional kinetics, when we combine positive thoughts, visualization, and movement repeatedly, we strengthen their connection and allow learning to take place. The more we can train our brain to move towards positive outcomes through our thoughts, to visualize the overcoming of an obstacle and the completion of a goal, or to use movement to literally and metaphorically move towards the lives we want to create, the more this learning is cemented into our brains. Because I am someone who has a frightening medical history, I've learned to actively engage my mind and body to cope with and overcome illness. I begin by closing my eyes. I take a gentle breath in, and I think the words, I am healing. Then I visualize myself as a giant sunflower with my roots shooting out from the soles of my feet, wrapped around the bedrock of the earth. Then I move. I bend my knees, sink my hips low, and squat deeply into the earth. I feel my legs tighten, becoming the thick green stalk. I am grounded. I lift my chin, physically expand my chest, my petals to the sky. Then I visualize the obstacle. I see the cancer as a dark storm swirling all around me. It is chaotic, it is loud, and it batters my stalk. I visualize the howling wind ripping at my petals. But because this stalk is rooted deep, I will not snap. I will stand strong even if the storm rages. I am still standing in the light. And I repeat the affirmation to myself, like a sunflower, I will always lean towards the light and be drenched by the healing powers of the sun. And with that, I gently open my eyes, feel the warmth in my chest and the resilience in my legs as I go about the remainder of my day. Whether you visualize yourself as an unshakable sunflower, or you simply visualize yourself as a strong, healthy person who's physically pushing obstacles out of your way, the effect is the same. You are taking a thought and turning it into a physical reality. Now, right here, where all of you are, we're going to put this practice in motion. Either keep your eyes open or close them, whatever feels most comfortable and most powerful to you in this moment. I want you to think of a goal, something that might make you proud of yourself 6 months from now. I'll give you 1 minute. With your dominant arm, I want you to reach out in front of you and right past your fingertips, vividly see that goal. Now grab a hold of it and hold it tight in your fist. With that firm grasp, rotate your palm to the ceiling and feel the tension move down your fingers into your forearm. Squeeze tight. This is you telling your brain, this is real. I have a hold on it. Squeeze it tight one more time. On the count of 3, I want you to firmly bring your fist to your chest and repeat the words, it is mine. 1, 2, 3. It is mine. Feel that? That is your brain registering success before it happens. If you had your eyes closed, open them. That's the practice. That's how the brain learns. Later, in the next few hours or days, just take one tiny real-world step towards what you just visualized. Even a small, small step anchors imagination to reality. Make sure you visualize one small obstacle on your way to visualizing your goal. See yourself steadily handling it and then proceeding on to your goal. The more you practice visual emotional kinetics, the more neuroplasticity occurs and the more you wire your brain for positive outcomes. Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. The life you envision is within your reach. You are not stuck. You are capable. You are in motion, and you are becoming. Thank you.